Okay, so this is Sunday, June 23rd, 2024, and we're going to go over the four instruments that we normally trade or look to trade. So I'm going to kind of show you where they're at from now. Right now, we're going to go down from and through a top-down analysis. So basically, we're just starting out at the 4 hour. Most of us are trading this on a 5 minute or 3 minute for our entries. So we basically go from a 4 hour down to a 1 hour to a 15 minute. And that's going to be how we're going to look at where it's at as to, and in correlation with where we're actually going to buy or sell. So kind of how the setup is on Sunday night before the beginning of the week. And then I always recommend looking back again every morning before you start to trade. So right now, here's a 4 hour chart on NASDAQ. And right now it's been making higher highs over the last few weeks. So I don't really need to go out and draw, trend lines way back down in this area because we're not even close to those levels right now. So we've had higher highs, every week as it keeps breaking. So basically we only have two trend lines or three. We have this outer one, we have an inner one, and then we have a downtrend line as it's been pushing back down or retracing. So we zoom out to a 1 hour, and that's where we have, that downward move we just had recently. Okay. So we've had this downward move. We draw the trend lines off that. I've got to redraw them. And that's the thing. When you draw these on the 4 hour time frame, they'll tend to move around. So what you've got to do is go back and kind of move them as you drop down to a lower time frame chart. So there's our 1 hour chart, and basically just drawing off of this high to this high, you'll see that we're kind of in that area where it's breaking that. It kind of, we had a candle close on the other side of that line, and then the next one went back down. So no clear move there on that. So what we're looking at doing over the next few days is just trading in this zone. I'll drop down to a 15 minute. So basically we have that zone in there. So we have our sell zone up here, our buy zone in here, and we're right in the middle. And you'll notice that on basically the four instruments we're looking at. That's kind of where we're at overall. So overall, we don't know if it's going to go up or down at the start of the market tonight through the London session. And again, you don't really care. You're going to trade it either way. Right now, it's in the middle. So we really don't have a clear direction as to if it's going to pull up or down. So we have to wait for the market to open and then make a move. Right now, my best guess, I would actually have a trade line from here to here, and I would be looking for that to pull through. And let me find my trade setup. So overall, and I call these trade lines because it's not really a trend line. I call it a trade line because it's there to support my trade thoughts. And then when the pair is moving in one direction and I'm in it, then I'll trade along that until it breaks that. Once it breaks that, I'll look to reverse. So right now, that's the best I could do as far as looking to say, hey, right now, where are we sitting? We're between the buy and the sell zone up here, buy zone down here. So right now we're sideways. And so I would look to trade that when it comes up here into the sell zone and hits that. And I would look to short it. If it pulls down here toward the buy zone, I would look to go long. If it breaks through either of those, well, then that trade thought process is gone. So if it pulls up, that's what we want to see here. I'd love to see it, come back down and bounce in this area somewhere off the trade line and then shoot for this sell zone as my target. And then, of course, if it breaks through that, then we're going to hold on to our position long. So what I do is I'll come in on this bounce. If it pulls back and bounces, then I'm going to look to trade it long. And so I'll look to trade it long on a bounce here. If we get that, my target's going to be this sell zone. And then what I will do is close out most of my contracts, but leave a runner on. So, as it moves up toward the sell zone, it's going to create a little mini trade line. Okay. Or it may just hop along this one. So until this trade line's broke, I will not look to short it. If it creates a little steeper move going up there, I would have a steeper trade line. And if it breaks that, steeper trade line, let's say we get a trade line from here and it just goes up. And it comes over here, gives us bounce and keeps going up. Well, once it breaks that trade line, then I would look to actually, short that. That would be our signal to possibly go short. Let me shut off my phone because I'm getting a lot of messages here. All right. So that's what we're looking on NASDAQ right now. And then we have oil. Let me go back to a 4 hour. Always start at the 4 hour. So 4 hour on oil, it's been in a nice uptrend. And this started back in June 4th. So the beginning of June, we had this nice downward push. This one was from about May 29th. So from May 29th, we had a nice move down. June 4th, it changed directions in here. It came down, gave us a low, and then it gave us our lower high, from the push down, and then came down here and gave us a higher low, came up here, finally gave us a higher high than this one. So that was our indication that we were looking for it to change directions. Our first target was this downtrend line here, this red line. Okay, I had two lines on there and I've left them there. Let me kind of move where they started because I drew them down on a larger time frame chart. And have to zero them in. So the two trade lines I had was this one. After the pair came up and made this low, a little higher low, came in, or higher high, came in, made a higher low, then pushed up. Then we would put our trend line or trade line from here to here. And I've left that line on there. Guys, I don't move my lines all the time. Just because a pair breaks through a line does not mean I need to move it. I can create a new line, and that's what I like doing better. I can delete this line. If the pair does continue to fall short here through this uptrend line, well, then eventually I can delete this one. But I like leaving them on because if you look what happened, it kind of broke through, kind of went up through, came back down. Then it finally came up to test the back side of that, pushed down to test this downward trend line. Check the back of it and then shot up. Okay, so at that point, once it shot up, then we know, okay, we're past the previous high and we could draw a new trend line. So your trend line then would be drawn from this point to this point. I don't, again, like moving them. And I think you can see why on this one. If I would have taken this, when the pair pulled through and did all this sideways movement and then pushed up and made a higher high, if I would have moved this trend line over to this point, well, then you'd miss out on this. You'd miss out on it turning right there, hitting the backside to pull back. And then you're guessing, why is it pulling back there? I don't know. Why is it pulling back there? Well, it's hitting one of our old support lines. So with support and resistance, something that was support at one time becomes, you expect it to come resistance later. Something that is resistance at one time can become support if a pair breaks through it and comes back to bounce out. And again, it's just price points. It's based off of price movement. And then look, it pulled back and then popped back up only to do what? These three candles here, 4 candles. It just went and hit that line. And then it pushed sideways. And then we finally had another push up. So, don't think you have to move the trend lines. I would rather draw a new one like here. And this is the 4 hour time frame. But now, like I said, however, because that gives me a target line, if we end up bouncing here and it pushes up, I have a target line, which is here. Now this target line's getting further and further away from this trend line here. So it's not going to hold up long term. At that point, I will delete this line. But for right now, I'm going to leave that. Dial down to a 1 hour time frame. And on the 1 hour time frame, we can see how, you know, we had the wicks pull through. And I'd have to go back, guys, because what happens is as you dial down these charts, a lot of times the lines are not stuck to your points on the 1 hour and 15 minutes as you dive down. So basically we had a sideways push, it pulled up, down, pulled back up, we had a downward move. So right now we're messing with our trend line, our uptrend line. If it breaks through this uptrend line, we're going to be targeting the lows on the way down. And one of them's right here. So my first target would be like right in here is where I'd come in, and this would be my first target area. We have one here, but I don't think this is gonna hold up very well. And then I'd come down and you could see all these candle closes and opens in this area. And you can see how that right there is pretty respected. So I would think, okay, that is probably going to be a strong support level. And if you look at this line as well, I drew it from here, but if you look, we can pull it back here and it's the same thing. Okay, this is where this was a resistance price. Don't even call it a resistance line. I'm drawing a resistance line, but this was a price point, you know, where you've got the bullish side of the market, the bearish side of the market. You've got the bearish side of the market took over and we had a sell off and everything else. So what we do is that's a high that we draw a line on, and that's where I picked here as my first target zone. Because if you look, when it pulled up, when oil pulled up past that high point, it pulled back down to test it as support. And that's that previous resistance becoming support over here. So as the pair, if the pair does pull short, that's first target, this is second target, third target's going to be a wick, and then fourth target, I would just target the bottom of this thing. And that's where you're going to leave your runners on. Okay. We haven't even got to the 15-minute. So dialing into the 15-minute, we can see that right now, of course, even if I go back out to the hour, we can see we're sideways right now. I drew this green line, dashed line, this red dashed line off of that wick basically, and this wick. So right now, again, with this as well, sideways. So when market opens, I don't know which way it's going to head, don't really care. Right now, it's more toward the top. It's more toward the bullish side right now. So if it goes up to that line, I would look for it to bounce or break the line. So you have to have two trade plans. Well, three really trade plans with these. If it starts going up and pulling up to that red line, am I going to sell on a bounce? That's my first trade plan. I'm going to sell on a bounce of resistance there. So I'm going to look for it to turn and sell. Meanwhile, if it breaks through this line, I'm going to take it long. So there is nothing wrong with coming in and putting a pending order up there. So if the pair starts pulling up to that, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to look for it to bounce on that. It might be range bound, you know, for tonight after the open, for tonight, and then through the night session. So I would look for it to bounce, and then if it bounces, I'm getting in short. But if it breaks that line, then I'm going to look for it to pull back and test that. And then I wish they had a good drawing tool for this. Come back and test that. And then if it comes back and tests that area as support, then I'm in. Okay. So kind of like this right here, we would look for it to pull up and we're looking for it to pull up there and then hit and turn. However, if it pulls through and breaks through that area, then we're going to look for it to come back, and we want to see support there. We want to see it start to turn there, and then our target's going to be up there. Okay, you're gonna target previous highs and lows, basically. So that is the two trade plans we have. One, if it goes up to the pink line and starts to turn around, we're in short. If it goes through the pink line and then comes back to test that as a support level, well, then once that starts to turn around and we get our buy signal, then we're going to go long and trade up, to these previous high levels. Okay. The opposite would be if it goes short. Same kind of trade plan, guys. So it's the same thing. If we go short, okay, we can look for it to hit this area, and then we'd look for it to, go long, something like that, and then go long after that up to the pink line. So that's our plan there. And then the other would be if it does not turn here and does not break our counter trend line, okay, because we're looking at when this retraces down here, when this pulls down here, we're going to draw a trend line along it, trade line. And if it comes down and hits this area of support and breaks that trade line, and then comes up and then comes back to test it again, well, then we'd look to go long up to that pink line. So the opposite, or the second trade or backup trade on this, would be if it goes short and passes through that support level, pulls back, and then we're going to look to trade it to a target. That is our backup plan. And this is exactly how you should plan these trades. Now, I'm fine with you going in and putting a pending order in that. So if it starts pulling down, that's what I call my safety or backup order, because I don't want to miss out on a trade. So if I'm going to go to bed, I might put a pending order down here, but I would also put some kind of alert in here. So as it comes down. Now, if you don't want to wake up, you're kind of stuck. If you don't want to wake up and you're looking for a trade setup, it's riskier. Okay, if you can't come in and watch the market, or come in and set yourself an alarm and get up and come watch it, because you might be up for an hour or two watching it, well, then if you're going to place trades, just know that those trades are going to be riskier. One would be, if it looks like it's going short, you could put a limit order in here. Okay, a buy limit order. So when it comes down and hits your limit order to buy, it will put you in long. Okay. And then you can even set targets up here, or alarms, or you could just set a take profit. In the meantime, you could have a pending order to go short on the other side of the line. It's going to do one of those things, guys. It's either going to go up or down and sit sideways between these two. So we'll trade it back and forth. Our backup plan is if it goes through either one of these lines, if it goes up through this line, then we're going to look to take it long. It's bullish. If it comes down to the bottom, we're going to look to trade it short. It's bearish. So that's the trade plan on that. So gold, let me go out to a 4-hour. And it looks like I got it on my wrong gold chart. Sorry, guys. So let's go over. Well, my lines are not on my gold chart. There they are. All right. I do not know why they were not showing. So here's the 4-hour on gold. Let me fix my chart. All right. So we got an uptrend line, and then we got what I call, and it's called in the industry, a double top up here. Okay. And we've got kind of a double bottom. So we have our trend line down here. If it comes back to that, I mean, that's going to be our target. So if gold comes down below this green zone, my target's down here, guys. It's down to this. I don't care. It's not going to go right to my target. Okay, it could shoot down straight and hit here. It could take forever and go sideways and hit here. You know, it could move, we could move up and down in these zones all the way over to here. Okay, and I'd like this trade plan better. I would love if it sits between the yellow and green lines all the way over to here. Because if it does, we're just going to be trading it up and down in that area. Two things you have to know is one, it looks like, okay, that looks like it might hold up for us. We have the yellow zone, green zone, and we would look to trade it sideways as it hits top and bottom. And then our backup, again, same exact thing. So we're using support and resistance as our trade. We're using a previous high over here. We have a high over here. We have a low over here. And I use that high to draw a pink zone. This one to draw a green zone. Why I drew those is because we have two tops over here. We have a double top. And this is on a 4-hour time frame. So that should be a really strong resistance level. Over here, this should be a really strong support level. So that's our top and our bottom of our channel. Now, in the meantime, we also have a mid channel. I always like to find a mid channel because a lot of times you'll see highs, such as back here, right here. And that's where I pulled from. We had the high here, and then we had it pull up right here, pulled down right there, pulled up right here to that mid zone. So when I look at the chart, that's kind of what I look for. I look for it and go, wow, that's a good mid zone for me. Now we also have other, don't get me wrong, you're gonna have highs and lows everywhere. We've got a high in here, we got a high here, we got lows here. You can go find as many levels as you want. I don't recommend it because your chart's gonna become extremely cluttered. Okay, so that's on the 4-hour. We just dial down to 1. Guys, we already know where this is at. That's it. Doesn't matter what we dial to at this point. The 4-hour showed we're sideways. The 1 hour, same thing. It's going to show the same thing. So my plan is the exact same that we just showed you, or I just showed you. Let's see if I can pull in some more data in there. So right now we're kind of in the middle. We're actually down more toward the buy zone on this. So I would look for indications that we can go long. Now, what I would love to see more than anything is I would love to see it actually pull down, you know, to this buy zone, and then give us a nice start to turn around, give us a higher, you know, a higher or a lower high here, and then we get a higher low and then a higher high, and bam, we're in to go. Okay, so that's what we're looking at overall is a nice bounce in here, and then we would look for it to go off that. So that would be our buy plan 1. And then our first sell plan would obviously be if this just goes through this, comes back and tests the back side, then that's our sell plan. So again, as you're waiting for this to move, don't be afraid to use a pending order down here. You can, by all means, use a pending order so you don't miss the move, especially if you're going to bed and you know, sleep all night, because it may happen through the night. You don't know when they're going to happen. What you have to do is put the odds in your favor and be ready. Okay. So go with the odds, put as many odds in your favor as you can. And that would be 1. If I'm going to bed and I don't want to miss out on that, if it breaks this buy zone here and just shoots short, you know, to go down to that trend line, this target and trend line here, I don't want to miss that, right? So I would put a pending order down here. And if you look, there's really not much in the way. If you put a pending order short here, there's not much, you know, there's a high here, low here. So that's where I would expect this to turn somewhere. Well, if you come in and I just like using the rectangle tool if I can find the thing. I don't know why I always do it. So if you come in and look, I don't need the whole thing. I just need about that. So if you come in and look at these high-low areas in here and draw a zone, you could see where that looks like a really good target. Okay, so if it comes down and it goes short through that zone, then I would look for a bounce and then take that short to that target. For the longs, we already discussed, if it bounces here, we're going to go long. If it pulls up and hits this mid zone, I would sell it. Comes, hits the mid zone and breaks a counter trend line that we would draw on the way up. So if it bounces on the way up, we're going to have a red line or a green line drawn underneath that. That's called your trade line. And if it hits this, I don't just go in and buy. Okay, I would need it to break through this, breaks through this, goes up, comes back, tests the back side of this as support. Well, then I'm going to buy on that bounce. Meanwhile, if it goes up and hits the top of this, starts to turn and breaks this trend line, we would draw a trend line on its move up. If it breaks that, well, then I would look to short, and my target's going to be down here. So these boxes, you can kind of trade back and forth on those. So last thing we got to look over is platinum. Go back out to the 4 hour and let me fix this. All right, there we go. So platinum's got a few more lines on it. I haven't gone out, and looked. I don't need to draw every line on there. I believe in clearing my charts on Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday. The guys, that's just something I do. I just clean everything off. And I don't want anything on there. So I clean everything off the chart, give it fresh eyes, and go through and look from the 4 hour down. I do it every week, the same exact way. I don't ever leave anything on my charts. I don't like to. I like to come in with the fresh chart. I act like I've never seen it before. And one way to do that is just deleting everything off the charts. So as we look at this, I don't need to come in here and draw a trend line from this point to this point. I don't need to do that right now. It's just, I know that it's there. I know that's a possibility, and I'm looking at drawing this. Here it is Sunday night. And I know I don't need to have that on there because here we are. We're way up here, or up here, sorry. So we're way up here. Once it starts breaking, if it breaks through this trend line, breaks through that trend line, and I notice, hey, I don't have another trend line, guess what I can do? I can come back to the 4 hour and draw from there to there. And guess what? The odds of it breaking through all these this week, sure, it might happen, maybe by the end of the week. And that's when I clear everything off and go back out and look at my higher time frame starting from scratch. I do have downtrend lines drawn. So those were my uptrend lines, these two. And then I have some in here. So again, this is the 4 hour time frame. And then I definitely drew downtrend lines from, this point to this point. Then I went from this point to that point. And then from that point to this point. Now here's where, again, I don't move all my trend lines every time. Here's why. We have a down line from here to here. Okay, well, we're just now hitting and kind of broke through that. We have a downtrend line here to here. Okay, over here we hit that on the way up. Should I have moved it? No. A break of a trend line means that that trend line is over. I'll say it again. A break of a trend line means that that trend is over. Why would I move the line out? Here's a prime example of that. I have this touch point here, this point here. That's where my line is drawn from on down. And you'll see in here, look what happened. The pair pushes down, back up, back down, back up, hits this price point, and then we get some sideways movement. If you look, you could probably picture one of my little boxes here. I like my boxes. I like my little zones. So this is some sideways movement. And it broke out of that sideways movement when it broke this trend line. So again, the trend line's from this high to this high, and then it went sideways and hit the trend line, pushed down, and hit the uptrend lines, pushed back up, broke it. So when it broke that downtrend line, it also broke out of the top of that box or sideways range and shot up to make a higher high than clear back here. Okay, so a higher high is an indication that, hey, we might be starting a bullish move. And then it came down and made a higher low than this one. So higher high, higher low, yep. You know, 2 candles here, or that second candle there pushed up, so yes. We look that it's long now, it's not short any longer. So we traded it up to here, back, that gave us a point to draw the green line. So it's been kind of sideways in here as it's pushing through those. But again, if we would have moved this, so when it came up, pushed this high and came down, if you move this trend line over to here, it would have been down. And then when it broke it here, you would totally ignore that you're actually in a bullish move. And that's why you don't want to move that. It already had some good points here to be drawn off of. It broke it here, had a good point there that touched it, and then it broke through. So that is over. That little downtrend's over. So basically we've had a retracement off that. 1 hour shows how kind of messy it is. A lot of up and down movement, but another trend line drawn from here to here, touched that, went back through. So it's completely making higher highs, higher lows. So on a 15-minute preparing to get down to a 5 or 3 to trade, we're basically between this sell zone and this big buy zone here. I'm not going to redraw that. I'm going to leave that alone. And it's coming over to, it came over to touch this trend line, which is off those 2 touch points. So it's either going to bounce here and shoot up to the sell zone, or it's going to break it and shoot to the buy zone. So the plans are the same on this one as they were on the rest. If it comes down and bounces there and gives you a bullish sign buy with your target up here to the top, if it goes through and breaks through that zone and tests the backside, then your target's going to be down out here. The opposite for the top. So if it bounces here, pulls up for the top, we're going to look for it to, we look for it to start turning, but we would only trade it if it does this. If it breaks through this uptrend line and comes back and tests that, well, then your target's going to be the bottom of the line. That would be your sell signal. And if it goes through the zone, if it goes through the zone, I'd love to see this. Love to see it come up here and pull back and test this right here, which would be the top of the support level or resistance level. We'd look for it to become support and bounce off this line. So that would be a really good signal right there as well. So that's the coverage of all 4. Just be careful trading.